Iran says it is ready to consider compromises if sanctions are discussed. In an interview published by the BBC on February 15, 2026, Iranian Deputy Foreign Minister Majid Takht-Ravanchi said Tehran is prepared to negotiate on its nuclear program if Washington agrees to discuss lifting sanctions. According to the BBC, Takht-Ravanchi pointed specifically to Iran's willingness to dilute its stockpile of uranium enriched to 60%, a level widely seen by analysts as close to weapons grade as evidence of Tehran's flexibility. He framed the offer in direct terms, telling the BBC that the ball is in America's court to prove that they want to do a deal, and adding that if Washington demonstrates sincerity, he is confident the two sides can reach an agreement. The offer, however, comes with clear boundaries. According to the BBC and Reuters, Takht-Ravanchi confirmed that Iran's ballistic missile program is not up for discussion. He told the BBC that when Iran was attacked by Israelis and Americans during the June 2025 war, its missiles came to its rescue and asked how Tehran could accept giving up its defensive capabilities. The deputy foreign minister also addressed the question of whether Iran would agree to ship its stockpile of more than 400 kilograms of highly enriched uranium out of the country, as it did under the 2015 nuclear deal known as the JCPOA. According to the BBC, Takht-Ravanchi said it is too early to say what will happen in the course of negotiations. On the question of zero enrichment, a demand publicly emphasized by several senior U.S. officials, he told the BBC that Iran does not consider zero enrichment negotiable. Takht-Ravanchi's statements were reinforced by Iran's atomic energy chief. According to the official IRNA news agency, as reported by Euronews, Mohammad Islami said that the possibility of diluting 60% enriched uranium depends on whether all sanctions would be lifted in return. Islami's statement did not specify whether he was referring to all international sanctions on Iran or only those imposed by the United States. According to Euronews, the offer comes as uncertainty surrounds the fate of Iran's enriched uranium stockpile, which was last fully verified before the 2025 strikes, according to international reports. The IAEA's Director General, Rafael Grossi, told the Munich Security Conference that inspectors had returned to Iran after the war, but had not been able to visit any of the targeted sites, according to Al Jazeera. Washington's position presents a sharp contrast. According to the BBC and multiple outlets, U.S. President Donald Trump has publicly maintained that Iran can have no uranium enrichment under any deal. Speaking to reporters at the White House on February 13th, Trump said, according to PBS, that any deal must include zero enrichment. He also openly suggested that a change of government in Tehran would be the best outcome, telling reporters that for 47 years they have been talking, and that regime change seems like the best thing that could happen. According to Reuters, U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio cautioned on February 15th that while Trump's preference is to reach a deal with Tehran, that is very hard to do. Rubio has also said, according to the Business Standard, that any agreement should address Iran's support for armed groups in the region. Trump held lengthy talks with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu in Washington on February 12th, according to the Associated Press, and said he insisted that negotiations with Iran needed to continue. Netanyahu, according to Al Jazeera, voiced reservations about any agreement that did not also curb Iran's ballistic missile program and end its support for militant groups. The Iranian side, however, pointed to what it described as a disconnect between Washington's public statements and private communications. According to the BBC, Takht-Ravanchi said Iran is hearing through private messages relayed through Oman that the United States is interested in a peaceful resolution. He told the BBC that the public rhetoric about regime change does not match what Tehran receives through diplomatic backchannels, saying, "We are not hearing that in the private messages." Takht-Ravanchi described the initial round of talks held in Oman on February 6th as having moved in more or less a positive direction, according to CNBC, but cautioned that it is too early to judge. Some outlets, including the Levant Files, claim Kushner attended the Oman talks, but this has not been independently confirmed. Tehran reportedly interpreted the claim as a positive signal of deeper American engagement. The diplomatic track is now heading to Geneva. According to the Swiss Foreign Ministry, as reported by PBS, a second round of indirect nuclear talks between the United States and Iran will take place in Geneva this week. Reuters confirmed that the talks are scheduled for Tuesday, February 17th. According to Axios, the U.S. delegation will be led by White House envoy Steve Witkoff and senior advisor Jared Kushner, while the Iranian side is expected to be headed by Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi. Oman's Foreign Minister Saeed Badr al-Busaidi will continue to mediate between the two sides, according to the Muscat Daily. According to Axios, Witkoff spoke earlier in the week with the Omani foreign minister and relayed several messages regarding the nuclear talks to be conveyed to Tehran. Ali Larijani, Secretary of Iran's Supreme National Security Council, confirmed on Iranian state television that he received the document containing the U.S. messages during a visit to Muscat. The Oman round on February 6 set a significant precedent. According to the Times of Israel, for the first time in U.S.-Iran nuclear discussions, America brought its top military commander in the Middle East to the table. U.S. Navy Admiral Brad Cooper, head of Central Command, attended in full-dress uniform, a visible reminder that the aircraft carrier USS Abraham Lincoln and associated warships were positioned off the coast of Iran. According to the Times of Israel, Iranian Foreign Minister Araghchi said after the talks that nuclear negotiations must take place in a calm atmosphere, without tension and without threats. He described the round as focused primarily on finding a framework for further negotiations, adding that the prerequisite for any dialogue is refraining from threats and pressure. Shortly after the talks concluded, according to the Times of Israel, the U.S. announced new sanctions against shipping entities and 14 vessels aimed at curbing Iran's oil exports, a move that came with the Trump administration committed to driving down what it called the regime's illicit oil and petrochemical exports. Behind the diplomatic overtures, the military preparations are intensifying. According to Reuters, citing two U.S. officials who spoke on condition of anonymity, the American military is preparing for the possibility of sustained weeks-long operations against Iran if President Trump orders an attack. The officials told Reuters that the planning underway this time is more complex than previous operations. In a sustained campaign, the U.S. military could target Iranian state and security facilities, not just nuclear infrastructure, according to one of the officials. The same official told Reuters that the United States fully expects Iran to retaliate, leading to back-and-forth strikes and reprisals over a period of time. According to Reuters, White House spokesperson Anna Kelly said that President Trump has all options on the table with regard to Iran. The most visible element of the military buildup is the deployment of a second aircraft carrier to the region. According to NBC News, the USS Gerald R. Ford, the world's largest and most advanced aircraft carrier, is heading to the Middle East from the Caribbean, according to defense reporting. The Ford will join the USS Abraham Lincoln Carrier Strike Group already operating in the Arabian Sea, according to USNI News. The Ford, which left its home port of Norfolk, Virginia, in late June 2025, has been deployed for more than 8 months, having been redirected from the Mediterranean to the Caribbean for operations in the region, according to the Army Recognition Defense outlet. Some reports claim the Ford participated in operations related to the capture of Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro in January, but this has not been independently confirmed. According to Euronews, with a displacement of 100,000 tons and the ability to perform up to 160 sorties per day, the Ford represents a massive escalation in American firepower in the region. The dual carrier deployment creates a formidable naval presence. According to Army Recognition, the USS Abraham Lincoln has been operating in the region since January 26, 2026, carrying an air wing that includes F-35C stealth fighters, F/A-18E and F/A-18F Super Hornets, EA-18G Growler electronic warfare aircraft, and E-2D Hawkeye surveillance planes. Its strike group includes multiple Arleigh Burke-class destroyers equipped with Tomahawk cruise missiles and ballistic missile defense systems. According to Army Recognition, the Lincoln arrived in the region after departing San Diego in November 2025 and transiting through Guam and the South China Sea before entering Middle Eastern waters. On February 3rd, U.S. officials say a Marine Corps F-35C intercepted an Iranian drone near the carrier in the Arabian Sea. The Long War Journal reported that on the same day, 6 IRGC Navy gunboats attempted to stop and board a U.S.-flagged tanker, the Stena Imperative, in the Strait of Hormuz, before the vessel continued under the escort of the USS McFall. President Trump addressed the military buildup directly during a visit to Fort Bragg, North Carolina on February 13th. According to Reuters, Trump told troops that sometimes you have to have fear because that is the only thing that really will get the situation taken care of. He said the U.S. had sent a very big carrier group to Iran and expressed a desire to make a deal while acknowledging that Tehran has been difficult. According to Trump, he thought a deal would have been reached during the previous round of negotiations, and that is where Operation Midnight Hammer took place. He told troops that the U.S. has built restored strength and tremendous power, adding that he had ended 8 wars in 10 months and had a couple more to go. On Thursday, according to The Star, Trump warned that the alternative to a diplomatic solution would be very traumatic for Iran. Tehran has not backed down from the military posturing. According to Press TV, as reported by Global Security, senior Iranian official Rear Admiral Ali Shamkhani warned that Iran will deliver a strong, decisive, and appropriate response to any adventurism against the country. Speaking to Al Jazeera, Shamkhani emphasized that Iran's military readiness is high and that the cost of any miscalculation would be significant. According to Global Security, Shamkhani also addressed Israel's role, asserting that the Zionist regime cannot take any action without direct support from Washington, while calling for all sides to avoid actions that could affect regional stability. Earlier, according to NPR, Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei warned on February 1st that any U.S. attack would spark a regional war, the most direct threat he had made since the current crisis began. Iranian officials and affiliated media have issued warnings that go beyond general statements. According to the Critical Threats Project at the American Enterprise Institute, Iran's state-affiliated Tasnim news agency argued on February 2nd that Iran could respond to a U.S. attack by striking American bases in regional countries, warning that host nations could become involved in security challenges that have nothing to do with them. According to the Long War Journal, the IRGC-affiliated Fars news agency published an infographic highlighting numerous U.S. military installations across the Middle East and the Horn of Africa. An Iranian parliamentarian, Amir Hossein Sabeidi, called for a preemptive strike against Israel and U.S. bases, according to the same outlet. Iran's Foreign Minister Araghchi stated on February 1st, according to Critical Threats, that if the United States attacks, the conflict will extend to the region and Iran will target all U.S. bases. The warnings are not coming only from Tehran. According to Critical Threats, citing reporting from the New York Times, officials from Qatar, Saudi Arabia, Oman, and Egypt have urged the United States not to attack Iran because of concerns that Tehran could retaliate by striking their territory. The Washington Post separately reported, according to Critical Threats, that Gulf states warned the U.S. that Iran retains short-range ballistic missiles and launchers capable of hitting American interests in the Persian Gulf. According to Iran International, Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman told Iran's President Masoud Pezeshkian that Riyadh would not allow its airspace to be used for an attack, citing the state news agency SPA. The Gulf states' position reflects a Middle East still reeling from the consequences of the Israel-Hamas war and the June 2025 Israel-Iran conflict. According to Euronews, if hostilities resume, Iran would most likely use its remaining missile arsenal to target Israel and U.S. bases in the region, and could also strike oil infrastructure and mine the Strait of Hormuz, through which approximately 1/5 of global oil is transported. The shadow of previous military action looms over the current standoff. According to Reuters and multiple outlets, June 2025 saw Operation Midnight Hammer, in which the United States used stealth bombers flying from American territory to strike 3 Iranian nuclear facilities at Fordow, Natanz, and Isfahan. The strikes came during the broader 12-day war between Israel and Iran. According to Euronews, Israel attacked dozens of Iranian nuclear facilities, military bases, and infrastructure installations beginning on June 13th, followed by the U.S. strikes on June 22nd using bunker buster bombs. The IAEA has reported that the strikes severely damaged Iran's enrichment capabilities, though Tehran could resume enrichment within months. According to Reuters, Iran staged a limited retaliatory strike on the U.S. base at Al Udeid in Qatar. According to Critical Threats, Iran has since been prioritizing the reconstitution of its ballistic missile program, seeking to rebuild facilities at the Parchin and Sharud military complexes. The United States reportedly intercepted a shipment of planetary mixers from China in the Indian Ocean in November 2025, equipment necessary for producing solid fuel for ballistic missiles. The current planning, officials told Reuters, envisions something far more sustained than that one-off operation. The military standoff is unfolding against a backdrop of severe internal unrest in Iran. According to Euronews, protests that began on December 28, 2025, initially sparked by a currency collapse and hyperinflation, quickly turned into nationwide anti-regime demonstrations. Tehran's response was a violent crackdown and a complete information blockade. According to Euronews, human rights groups cited by media estimate casualties ranging from thousands upward, but precise figures remain unverified. According to NBC News and the Associated Press, Iranians are beginning to hold 40-day mourning ceremonies for those killed in the crackdown, adding internal pressure on the sanctions-battered regime. According to NPR, Trump urged Iranians to keep protesting in mid-January, stating that help is on the way, but held off on intervention after talks resumed and what Washington described as a pledge by Tehran to halt the crackdown. Opposition voices are encouraging military action. According to Reuters, Iranian opposition figure Reza Pahlavi, the exiled son of Iran's toppled Shah, said U.S. military intervention could save lives and urged Washington not to spend too long negotiating with Tehran's rulers. Pahlavi told Reuters that there are signs the Iranian government is on the brink of collapse and that an attack could weaken it or accelerate its fall. He said he was hoping that the attack will expedite the process so people can take it all the way to the regime's downfall. According to Iran International, Israeli officials have cautioned that air power alone is unlikely to produce political change in Iran and that any transition would depend on internal fractures and organized domestic forces. A senior Israeli official told Reuters that toppling the regime would require boots on the ground. According to Reuters, Trump himself has long voiced skepticism about sending ground troops into Iran, saying last year that the last thing you want to do is ground forces. The firepower arrayed in the region so far, according to Reuters, suggests Washington's options center on strikes by air and naval forces rather than a ground invasion. The negotiating positions reveal a narrow window for compromise. According to the Long War Journal, citing a February 2nd interview with a Lebanese Hezbollah-affiliated outlet, Ali Shamkhani, who serves as the Supreme Leader's representative to the Defense Council, rejected any prospect of transferring enriched uranium outside Iran. Shamkhani said that 60% enrichment can be reduced and diluted to 20%, and that if the U.S. is worried, Iran can lower the level, but Washington must pay the cost. According to Critical Threats, Shamkhani insisted that negotiations must be limited strictly to the nuclear issue and that Iran will definitely continue to support the axis of resistance. At the same time, according to the Business Standard, Iran has indicated that it expects Washington to focus exclusively on the nuclear file if it wants an agreement, which Tehran views as a step forward from the maximalist demands that derailed previous rounds. According to Israel Hayom, during Revolution Day speeches on February 11th, Shamkhani emphasized publicly that the missile capabilities of the Islamic Republic are not for negotiation and that the only logical option for Washington is to engage seriously in the ongoing process. The convergence of diplomatic effort and military escalation creates a moment of extraordinary tension. According to Reuters, U.S. envoys Witkoff and Kushner will sit down for talks on Tuesday morning in Geneva, then move in the afternoon to trilateral discussions with representatives of Russia and Ukraine, creating a packed schedule of diplomatic meetings. According to Axios, the U.S. side has been communicating with Tehran through Omani intermediaries in the days leading up to the Geneva round, attempting to narrow the gaps before formal discussions begin. The military dimension, however, has not paused. According to the Maritime Executive, the Wall Street Journal has reported that the USS George H.W. Bush, currently completing drills off the Virginia coast, is also being prepared for potential deployment, raising the possibility of a third carrier in the region. The stakes could not be higher. According to the